I'm joined in studio here by Ongama Mtimka. He's a political analyst at the Nelson Mandela University. Thanks very much for joining us, sir.
Good. Thank you for having me.
So what are your overall impressions of what the IEC has to say? They seem to be saying, thumbs up, glitches here and there. Your thoughts?
I think that in general, the way in which elections have progressed, voting stations opening on time mostly, is good and commendable. But I think the questions around shortages of ballots very early in the day, as well as some of the incidents that have happened, as well as the behavior of some communities as far as, precluding officials from entering buildings, that's cause for serious concern. And it says that the security profile of elections is actually increasing, and it's getting us to a situation where questions should be asked as to how much more can be done ahead of election day in terms of from a security point of view.
Yeah.
There's just a number of these incidences that are a cause for concern.
Let's focus on those incidences in the Eastern Cape, for example, where communities were actually digging trenches to prevent other community members from being able to pass through to go and vote. I mean, that's quite worrying. And I suppose it's significant. It signifies the level of anger by the community, but it doesn't really help, does it?
It doesn't help. So what I'm reading from it is that there is frustration with the process itself, which is a vote of no confidence on the political system, at least as far as those communities are concerned. One is reading frustration and anger from that. It will be interesting, obviously, as more details come out about each of the specific situations in which this happened. We have this thing in conflict of understanding that each conflict or political event has got its own DNA, which is necessary to be understood within the context of the local setting in which it is happening. Because what you may find is that sometimes people are angered over party political processes, but it will also be instances where you find that there's general displeasure with politics in general, and people feel that there isn't an envisaged possible outcome from whatever from the electoral process. And the other thing is that we've seen that sometimes people do not prefer the invited political platforms for them to express their political views, but rather would find the excitement of a protest more compelling than the rituals of democratic participation, elections, and participating in public participation processes.
And it is problematic in the sense that this is the one opportunity that people have to actually raise their voice, because obviously once people get into power, you don't have much of a choice in what they do for 5 years. It's the one opportunity that they have. But of course, there's a big argument as to whether, you actually do see the results. People keep on voting, but they'll say, we keep voting, but we don't get any results, and so on and so forth.
Sure. So it's important that if people are going to decide not to participate in electoral processes out of a political choice not to do so, a principle of democracy is that, one, they are tacitly consenting to the outcome, and two, they can't be engaged in a criminal process of precluding others who have not arrived at that decision. Remember that it's their choice not to participate, but they cannot prevent people who still choose to participate. So there, it becomes more than a question of their choice not to participate, but rather infringing on the rights of others to participate in the processes.
It is bad news to hear that they're presiding officers who are, playing around with ballot papers and trying to shift them here and there and opening sealed ballot boxes and so on and so forth. But of course, it's good news that it seems as though they're managed, the IEC has got them under the radar and has been able to kind of pounce on them. But it is a worry.
Absolutely. It's very worrying, Nompu. So one of the things we look at in an election is to what extent are these incidents part of a grand scheme And to what extent are they systemic? And what helps us not to see them as part of a grand scheme that is systemic is the response of the electoral body. So when that response is swift and there's action taken, it helps us locate these or categorize these as isolated incidents.
Yes.
And I think that it's going to be important for the IEC to continue to respond in that way. What I wasn't happy about, though, is how they respond to this question about shortage of ballots. Because remember, if these shortages are in particular strongholds known to be of a particular party, it's easy to make allegations that those are systemic and therefore part of an attempt to manufacture the electoral outcome.
And it is worrying that it's so early in the day. You know, we're halfway during the voting day and the people are already running out of ballot papers.
And when that happens, then conspiracy theories are going to arise. So it's important for the responsiveness to going back to your question, that look, the strength of every system is dependent on the warm bodies behind the processes and the rules and the procedures. So you are going to find people who try and cut corners. You're going to find people who are trying to act in a way that is partial. Key, swift responsiveness so that those do not get to be read to be a systemic or part of a grand scheme.
Ongama, let's stop it there because you know the nature of television. Thanks very much there, Ongama Mtimka.